Hey everyone, Dr. Crayhay here. In this video, I'll be discussing Chapter 8. In this video, I'll talk about bivariate correlations. So just a brief overview. Bivariate just means two variables. So if you're not familiar with what a variable is, you'll want to review, I believe, Chapter 3 of your textbook, or you can go back to those lectures. So bivariate, two variables, and then a correlation just looks at the relationship between those variables. So again, a correlation looks at the relationship between two variables. So we've been discussing correlations indirectly pretty much the entire semester, but in this chapter we're looking at it more formally. So we're describing associations between two quantitative variables. So again, quantitative just means we have a numeric response. So it might be how stressed are you on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being no stress, 10 meaning you're completely stressed out. So that could be a quantitative variable that you use in a correlation. You could describe an association with categorical data. So categorical data has to do with categories. So maybe we want to look at the relationship with males and females, so stress in males and females. Maybe we want to, the example here, marital satisfaction and where you met your spouse. And you have two options there, online or offline. So again, correlations can be with quantitative continuous data, so something like on a scale of 0 to 10, or you could do it with categorical data where you choose one of a couple of categories, male, female, you met online, you met offline, those kinds of things. The difference will be in how you graph it. It's the same correlation statistic. You might call, if it's with categorical data, you might call it a point by serial correlation, or you might do like a crosstabs analysis. Again, that's kind of peeking into statistics, but the main difference is going to be in how you graph it. So here on the left we have our good friend the Scatterplot. So this will be with quantitative continuous data. So we have a well-being scale that ranges from -2 to +1.5, and so you can see there's a pretty big range of possible values, and it looks like you can score anywhere on that continuum. We also have percentage of deep talk from 0 to 100. So again, it's continuous. We have a lot of options of where people can score there, and we're graphing those into our scatter plot, and that's giving us a sense of the strength of that relationship. You could also look at marital satisfaction by how people met, whether they met online or offline, and so that's what this bar graph here on the right is showing. So you can see there's a slightly stronger relationship between marital satisfaction and how you met when you meet online. So your textbook talks about this as an option. My personal preference is that you do things with categorical data. You actually run what's called a t-test. So then you can see if people are more satisfied with their marriage if they met online or offline. And so here you can kind of see satisfaction looks higher with online, but again, I would want a t-test to determine that better. But it is possible to do a correlation with categorical data. So this is a correlation, overall relationship between two variables. How are they related? The good news about bivariate correlations is that, of course, we've already talked about these. We've just been calling them something else. So if you go back to the association claims from, I believe, Chapter 3, we talked about the different kinds of relationships you can have between two variables. And so you can have positive association, so as one variable increases, the other increases. You can have negative associations, which as one variable increases, the other decreases. Of course, you can have no relationship, which of course, there's no discernible pattern in our scatter plot that we've been looking at. This is the same thing with the correlation. So you can have positive correlation, negative correlation, you can have no correlation. And it means the same thing as it did in Chapter 3. Again, correlations can range from -1 to +1. Either end would be a perfect correlation. Doesn't matter if it's a -1 or a +1. Again, a +1 would be a positive correlation. As one increases, so does the other. Negative would be one variable goes up, the other variable goes down. A zero correlation, of course, would mean no relationship. Again, you can do this with the quantitative continuous data, or you can do it with categorical variables. My strong preference is that you only use the continuous data, so all of those Likert scales, 1 to 7, 0 to 10, whatever we happen to use, as opposed to those categorical variables. But you can absolutely use categorical variables if you would like. Now we need to make a quick note here about what makes a study correlational. It's not the fact that you run a correlation. It's actually how you measure your variables. So if you give a survey, that's going to be a correlational study. If you collect data from a newspaper, that's going to be a correlational study. If you go out and you hand out slips of paper, little surveys, again, correlational. If you run an experiment, you have an independent variable with different levels, you expose people to different stimuli, and then you have a dependent variable that changes as a result of those conditions. It's not a correlational study, but rather it is an experiment. So it's how you set up your study that makes it either correlational or experimental. So you'll want to pay close attention to that as you are reading through research, as you are setting up your study. If it's a survey, all of those kinds of things, it's going to be correlational. If you hear anything about independent variables that have different conditions, so one group could complete the test with unlimited time, another group had 5 minutes to finish the test, that's an experiment. If you have people watch one kind of video, maybe you make them watch funny videos versus sad and depressing videos, and then you check mood. There we're talking about independent variables, dependent variables. That is an experiment. So again, it's how you set up the study that makes it correlational, not the statistic that you employ.